I have figured out the DLC and this is gonna blow your mind. Let it blow your mind. I was online the other day and I saw this one sentence. The sentence goes, Paldea is blank. And the moment I read that sentence, I remembered stuff about the game. And this is the wave of thoughts that went into my mind. And this could really be the case with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and what we're gonna do in the DLC and what the true origin to the creator could be in this game. And this doesn't just go back 200 years, but much further back than that. We'll get to what that blank is. When it comes to the creator, we have the third legendary, we put that on the back burner. The two big legendaries of this game are Koraidon and Miraidon. They're not just Paradox Pokemon, but kind of the kings of the future and the past. One has Hadron Engine, which summons the electric terrain and activates a Quark Drive. The other one has Orichalcum Pulse, which is like Drought and Photosynthesis combined. Koraidon would be able to lead these ancient Pokemon and power them up wherever it goes, and same with Miraidon. We don't have a center version where these two could clash, which they could clash because Miraidon would only summon a terrain, which the Drought would not overwrite. So they would both be fighting with their armies at full power, which a battle like that would probably mess up Paldea. Sadentor said just the Paradox Pokemon wandering out could destroy the ecosystem. These two battling with their armies, if the games could cross over, would destroy everything. Alright, I've gone on a tangent, but there is a place in the real world that is talked about in legends called Atlantis. Koraidon's ability is Orichalcum Pulse. Orichalcum is a legendary metal found in Atlantis. That's just a rumored metal. Quarks, along with electrons, are the smallest things in the world that make up everything. Quarks together form hadrons, which lead to the Large Hadron Collider, which is used by physicists to understand particles more. They have these things smash into each other, accelerating fast to try to answer unresolved questions they have about how the world works. Shows like Steins Gate will take this to the next level and say that these people would be the ones to uncover time travel, make a black hole, and invent the time machine. Which would make sense because the LHC is a giant project where thousands of scientists have collaborated on, because that's how complicated that stuff is. So we have the natural Orichalcum and then the quarks that the scientists uncover. A very big part of this game is technology. Plato is a Greek philosopher. This is what he looks like here. Alright, he fine. Atlantis was born from Plato's description of it. He created the legend. He described Atlantis as flashing with the red of Orichalcum, whatever that means. He just meant this place is beautiful. Atlantis has a circular build based off how he describes it, with rings of land and water in between. This is Plato in real life who described this, and people have always been trying to find it in real life and leading to sites like this, which do look like it could have been where Atlantis was. Atlantis was a long time ago, by the way, but nobody knows if Atlantis really existed. They called him a liar, and still to this day they call whatever he wrote about Atlantis to be a lie. He wrote so much about this futuristic super city, but people could never find this land that he talked about. You see where this lines up, right? In the Pokemon world, we have a Plato. His name's Heath. So this is the blank. This is what I'm getting at. Atlantis is the Great Crater. That's the gist of this theory. And you know what the code name for the Paldea region is? Let's open up some text files from the game. What does this say? It's Atlantis. The code name for the Paldea region in the text files of this game is Atlantis. Let that sink in for a sec, and let me explain what Atlantis was. So Plato was from around 400 BC, which is like 2,500 years ago, and he described Atlantis as this powerful and advanced kingdom, that the founders of it were so futuristic that they were like half gods, half human, and they created this utopia. And he says that 9,000 years before his time, that Atlantis was struck by earthquakes and flood and sunk in one day, and it became a lost city that nobody could find again. The notion is that Atlantis had technology and natural resources beyond what we have now, that they were a group of advanced humans that after they perished, humans had to start from scratch again. So what is the parallel to this in Pokemon? The gist would be that Heath went to the Great Crater, told all these stories, saw these Pokemon, and came out and was called a liar. The same way Plato was. But what's odd here is that Area Zero is no Atlantis. What we see today is what Heath saw down there, aside from that giant spike of gems, which is where probably Heath went in to see the disc Pokemon, but most of everything else he wrote of in the book was real, and not much has changed to today. We can pretty much verify the stuff he talked about. So what is the Atlantis aspect? Especially if they would codename the game that, it means at least they got inspiration from this Lost City of Atlantis thing. Is it the Paradox Pokemon? The Disc Pokemon? What is that factor that we call Heath the Liar for? What is something that was only there when he went there, that is no longer there when we go down there? Or is Heath not really Plato at all? And is this a bigger mystery that goes back to who left those slabs? Paldea's history goes back 2,000 years, where we had the Paldean king and then the smaller leaders of other parts of Paldea, and they eventually unite together. That's 2,000 years ago, but things happened in this region before that, none of which is recorded. That's all lost history. They spread this notion that the crater's a million years old, but they don't really know anything. What if the crater is not that at all? What if long ago, this technology, this unscratchable metal, which makes no sense why Pokemon would put this in the game for us to read that it's an unscratchable metal. What if that's Orichalcum ore? What if there was an ancient civilization from over 10,000 years ago that lived in the crater? What if these people were an advanced group of humans, both possessing the natural indestructible resources like Orichalcum ore and the knowledge of technology of quarks, and was this utopia? What if it actually wasn't a crater at all, but was an advanced city sitting on top of this giant pool of water? What if that's what Area Zero is? Think about it, the crater is the exact circular thing that you would need for Atlantis. Think about when you go down to Area Zero. That shape is not really how a crater works. A crater leaves a giant impact, but it doesn't just go deep down that far. What if that's Atlantis? What if it used to be filled with water? Now for my next point, which is a little less relevant. Atlantis was wrecked in one day. The ruinous 4 Pokemon. They're said to have destroyed the kingdom of a greedy king, the personification of hatred, greed, and fear of the king. Shen Pao, described in the game as the hatred of those who were slain by that sword. Wo Xian, killed for documenting the wrongdoings of the king. Same with the other 2. Now, unless they have like a 5th leader, like I talked about in this video, I don't think these Pokemon did this hypothetical sinking of the lost city in the crater, because they're the sub-legendaries in this game. So let's put that on the back burner. What I do think sunk it is the 3rd legendary. Their advanced tech, the people back then, there's little doubt to me that the equations they left behind on that slab, or whatever the message was, this is a hint that there was some lost technology and a group of ancient humans that lived back then. When I think of the 3rd legendary, this is what really comes to my mind. In my head, the 3rd legendary isn't a living creature, but a machine made by these ancient people that soon gained its own sentience. I think they invented a machine, either a time machine or a dream machine, depending on how this goes, and that everything was fine for a while, that the machine was useful, that the knowledge they gained from it was good, and that it was serving its purpose. But I imagine that all it takes is one evil figure to appear in the region that causes everything to go down the drain. So let's say it is a dream machine. Let's say the original king is this nice person that forms this utopia. You can't form this utopia without a good leader. So maybe it's this king's son that takes over, and he's this evil person wronging people, forcing his way of doing things, killing people. Let's say the new king pisses off the machine, and now it's about to destroy the region. It's gone out of control, and during this moment, maybe it manifested some of the hurt people and turned them into the ruinous Pokemon. So while the 3rd legendary destroys everything, the ruinous Pokemon also have a small part in destroying everything. And now that the city's gone and the ruinous Pokemon are sealed around the region, they're like little remnants from that time period. That's just a random story, but it makes sense, right? The slabs left behind mean one of 2 things, and I won't say the other thing, but I imagine the sentience of the created 3rd legendary is now in Area Zero, like an echoing voice to those who go down, and it lures people into recreating its machine so it can be reborn. These slabs, think of it like this. Like we humans do today, it could be a message of all their knowledge in the world, knowledge of technology, quirks, orichalcum, the sum of human achievement to that point, written down and preserved so it's not lost forever, preserved for future people. Maybe they knew the city was about to sink, and they left this message. We do this too. We send all our known knowledge out into space. With how futuristic this hypothetical city would have been, Of course they would have recorded it. And for someone to find it and regain their lost technology somewhere distant in the future. And lo and behold, Sada goes down there and speed runs the game of technology, going from nothing to creating an artificial intelligence and inventing a time machine. Sada read the notes. Sada just instantly acquired all that lost knowledge. Doesn't what I say here just paint the perfect picture? That ore that powers Sada's AI is said to be so powerful that it's how she's doing it. It's how she's able to function as an AI, and that's how the time machine can function, because that crystal ore is that powerful. This ore, what else could it be but orichalcum? It's the natural orichalcum mixed with the knowledge of quarks that the people had back then. So quarks and orichalcum, boom. The ancient people mixed both of the worlds to create this ultimate machine. Heath does describe stuff similar to Plato. You know, Plato says the flashing lights of orichalcum. Heath also says, damn, I saw this disc thing. It was a brilliant bright disc. And if you think about it, if this is a special location that the crystals naturally exist, that's where they would build a super civilization like Atlantis on. It would be a giant beam that gains energy from the crystals down there. So logically, you could turn that into the perfect spot to build Atlantis. Make sure you guys shank that like button. Let me know your thoughts. Hopefully the DLC goes into more lore and some of this ends up being true. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.